Kia ora, and welcome to today's edition of Forest Call, telling the forest story. I'm Don Carson. We're going to talk this program about the next generation of foresters, the young people who are taking on forest work or studying to get jobs in the industry. Our harvest is going up. The billion trees will need people to plant them. There's not enough people, though, paradoxically, for the work at the moment. We have Paul Burridge joining us in the studio. Welcome, Paul. It's a paradox, isn't it? On the other hand, we've got not enough people to do the job, but we've got plenty of work.
Oh, absolutely, Don. We're one of the, I guess that's the exciting thing about the forest industry is there is so much scope of work and available for young people coming into the industry.
What's the range? What sort of jobs are there? I mean, obviously the hairy-chested one, chopping down the trees, but what else?
Oh, look, there's a career and a job for everyone within the industry, right from being on the hill planting a tree through to harvesting and into the mechanics or the mechanical and technology side of things, but also right through, I guess, diplomas and university degrees in forest management. It's very exciting, and the exciting thing is that, you know, we're probably one of the few sectors that there's 100% employment rate out of university and polytech.
Well, that goes to the paradox. Why aren't we getting more people studying forestry when there's a guaranteed job coming out the other end of it?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think people are really aware of the opportunities that exist within forestry and just the scope and breadth of the career that they can have within the industry. You know, there's the world's your oyster, and that message hasn't been out there. So that's obviously what we're trying to achieve. And you know, as an industry, we're setting up some initiatives to try and encourage and get the word out to young people, school leavers, people looking to change careers, that forestry exists and the types of pathways that you can go down. I mean, for instance, people won't know that you can also sit in an office on Queen Street in Auckland as a Queen Street forester, marketing, for instance, of produce into our Asian markets as well.
And of course, with the current news on the debris flows at Tolaga Bay, and the solutions being talked about are in engineering, making better roads, landings, getting the debris off the slope, debris traps. That's engineering stuff.
Yes, absolutely, and also science and innovation. So, you know, they're the type of people that we also need into the industry going forward. I guess the future disruptive thinkers that can take our industry to the next level, progress the innovation, the technology, but also the science behind what we're doing.
Is part of the problem, though, that a lot of people, city people, looking at the primary sector, well, it's outdoors, that's not for me, and forestry is sort of at the fag end even of that because nobody knows about it. Is that part of the problem?
I guess that's the perception, Don, and if you look at myself as an example, I'm a Wellingtonian born and bred.
Yep.
When I grew up, I always enjoyed the outdoors. I wanted a job or a career outside. I thought I'd become a farmer, but my father must have thought that I'd be no good at keeping livestock alive, so he pointed me towards forestry. And look, to be honest, I never looked back.
One of the perceptions, though, also is that forests are dangerous. I mean, how true is that as a perception? Trees go up that way, you chop them down, they go that way. People sometimes are underneath.
Well, look, it has been a big focus for the industry, particularly since 2013. So we have had a number of serious injuries and fatalities within the forest industry. However, the industry is very proactive in terms of our health and safety systems, and we are probably one of the leading sectors in that regard, and certainly a very passionate industry about health and safety. We also have the Forest Industry Safety Council, which was established in 2014 to make sure that our guys get home safe every night.
Yeah. Paul, if we look at somebody year 13, not quite sure what they do after that, how can they have a taste of forestry?
The industry is setting up a few initiatives in various regions around the country, Don, that will help transition our young people leaving school into a career in forestry. Now, those provide a lot of pastoral care and support around people entering into the program, so it helps them become work ready, I guess. But it also shows them a wide range of the industry, so that they can decide whether which part of the industry that they would like to focus their career going down. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they are stuck within that part of the industry. There's a number of different paths that they can take.
Scholarships. There are scholarships. Paradoxically, again, they're not being picked up.
Oh, absolutely, Don. And most of the big forestry companies within New Zealand do offer scholarships for people at all levels within their training path through forestry. So whether it's diploma level or whether going through the forestry science degree. And you hit the nail on the head that quite often they're not taken up. So there will be resources available shortly through the Training Careers portal that will help point people in those right direction.
Who does the teaching? Which institutions do we have for people to go to?
Well, and that's the great thing about the industry, Don, is people can train on job if they would like that path, and that gives them a salary or a wage while they learn. There's also Te Ohumai in Rotorua that provides a management diploma. University of Canterbury offers the forestry science degree, and there's a number of other industry training polytechs around the country that offer some sort of forestry course.
Thank you for joining us on Forest Call.
Not a problem. Thanks, Don.
Our planted forest industry, challenging to be our second primary export earner. Wood's environmentally good in plant and product for building and landscapes. We're great in technology and science, selecting stronger, straighter trees, safer ways to harvest them, cleaner and earthquake-resistant ways to build. Forests, regionally vital for economic development, creating all sorts of jobs. A prime future investment for our nation. Love our forests. Coming up, Trichoderma. It's a soil fungus working as a fungicide, and so boosting seedlings into producing faster growing and healthier trees and plants. I've been talking to some of the education institutions recently about their forestry courses. Let's hear from them now, but first of all, the chair of the Contractors Association, whose members are the ones feeling most acutely that labour supply pinch.
The need for labour is big, bordering on huge. The industry is growing at the moment. The estimates are we need another new cable crew somewhere in New Zealand a week for the next 2 or 3 years, but I don't think we'll achieve that because we haven't got the labour to do it. We can buy the equipment and the wood is there to be harvested, but it's definitely not sustainable from a people point of view.
So why is there such a need, Ross, for so many forestry workers at the moment?
There's a big increase in the labour demand because of the planting that was carried out 22 to 25 years ago. All that stuff is now maturing and it needs to be harvested. Some of it may never be harvested, but there's certainly a huge demand in certain areas. The main thing is investment forests that are coming on, and they're putting pressure on the corporate forest labour to come out and do some of that stuff.
So the School of Forestry offers an undergraduate degree in forestry science and also an undergraduate degree in forest engineering. It's the only one to do that in New Zealand. Those degrees sound pretty specialised, but actually they offer you a very good broad general education, and that's proven by the fact that our graduates end up in all sorts of industries. Most of them get jobs within forestry, but there's also lots of other opportunities too.
So how do you go about, David, in providing for that huge range of skills that are required in forestry in your courses here at Canterbury University?
It's in two areas. We focus on science through understanding biology and ecology and applying that to a major sector, forestry, but we also focus on the management of a resource. So the degree is a combination of both science and management, and actually there are very few degrees that offer that very useful combination.
So it looks like from your life story, you came here as a student, you liked it so much that you came back as a tutor.
Yeah, back in '94, I jumped on the course. It was probably the best thing I'd done, and spent all their time out in the bush working right through the whole harvesting system, and now I'm back tutoring on the course that I started on.
Yeah, how green are these kids when they come in?
They're pretty much straight off the street and or out of high school. So they're real green, and teaching the kids from scratch is quite a tough job, but I enjoyed the challenge, and we're seeing the kids getting out working, which is good.
How do they see the opportunities in forestry? Obviously they saw something, otherwise they wouldn't be here, but what's their perspective? How accurate is it?
A lot of them, they do well out there. It's a bit of a shock to a lot of them because it is a hard life. It's a hard job. It tests their character quite a lot. So we do have a couple of that don't stay in the job, but most of them they enjoy it. They love it.
What's the appeal for them? Is it that they've got a guaranteed job? Is it that they're going to earn pretty well, or what?
Yeah, it's all those things. It suits them because you know it's not an academic sort of job. It's real physical. The money wise, it's good money. You make good friends. You make lifetime friends out there, which is a big bonus. And yeah, you get to travel the country as well. You can travel all around New Zealand. They're not just working here on the coast. So there's a lot more opportunities out there for them in logging.
You see some of them coming back to replace you as a tutor eventually?
Well, I say to them that, yeah, and it's, we do have a bit of a laugh about it. And the two tutors that taught me, sadly they've passed on. And well, hopefully I can last around a few more years to keep these kids getting jobs.
We're fortunate to have the support of our local industry, and most of the guys that come through our course and complete it find employment, and then that's a big bonus. As you know, we've got a high unemployment rate on the East Coast, and giving them an opportunity to provide for their families is our big push. You know. It's a second chance opportunity for a lot of our guys that haven't done too well at school. Come through, left school and just standing around thinking, what am I going to do? Well, the forestry is an opportunity because you can start on the tools, but there's nothing stopping you suddenly to graduate up into middle management if you wanted to and go even further. It's just about a bit of a dedication to their own stuff as well.
So what are those tools that you give these trainees that come through here?
A lot of times that we spend most of our initial push is on their social skills, because a lot of guys have come from backgrounds that is not too flash. But we spend a lot of time trying to iron that out, because if we can't get that ironed out first, then giving them the skills to work in the bush isn't going to work. So as I said, we do a lot of drug and alcohol education. We do a lot of soft skill stuff like being reliable, being able to get out of bed when you have to, and then being able to get up and go to work. Those are the big ones. Our training crews work industry hours. We're not a 9 to 3 course. Our guys get picked up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and they're here at about 3 o'clock. And then when they're working with the crews, they work crew hours. So it's those skills first. If they can't handle that, then being able to use a chainsaw is pointless if they want to work in our industry.
Okay, so once done, they've got those social skills, they turn up before dawn. What technically are you then teaching them?
Well, there's been a big change. When I first started at Tūrangarato in 2002, it was a balance between silviculture and harvesting, but recently there's been a real big push towards harvesting, so the majority of our guys are training on basic harvesting skills like processing on the landing, breaking out, log making and QC. So the nature of our training is changing, and it's changing even more now, but with the introduction of mechanised logging. So we have to look at what's coming through, and the majority of the guys that we're training at the moment is either for breaking out or for QC work. There's no landing work at the moment because the mechanised processes are being used. And looking forward, with the introduction of the claw, there'll be less and less need for breaker outers. So we're at a crossroads where we're going to take our training. So we're looking at more mechanised or machine operating training.
Of course, as you get increasing mechanisation in the industry, you have to have more equipment to teach these guys how to use it. That must be a bit of an obstacle there, getting resourced up.
Yeah, we're looking at it seriously, because that's the way that our industry is going. It's going to fully mechanised crews. If we want to stay in the training game, we have to change with the changes. So it's going to be a big investment, and it might mean that we have to work more closely with the industry in terms of getting access to machines and sites and all that kind of stuff.
So in the end, what opportunities coming out of this course can the trainees look forward to?
There's a good opportunity for young fellas that want to come in and do well. As I said, you can start on the tools, but where you end up is up to you. You don't necessarily have to be a super brainy fella. You just got to be willing to do the work, hard work. That'll get you there. So if you left school early, it doesn't mean that you can't progress through into our industry.
He's leaving school at the end of the year, so he wants to go straight in, and possibly Rehana too.
Hi, Chick. How are
Hi,
you?
good. Nice to meet you.
Look, tell us about the pathways there for Gisborne boys.
Okay, so I'm the Gateway Coordinator at Boys High, and every year we bring kids down to Turangariro to do their forestry training. And yeah, I've had a really good success rate. The boys love it. They come down 1 day a week to do a full day. Lou picks them up at 5 o'clock in the morning and takes them to the bush. But they also get all their health and safety, their chainsaw maintenance and learner safety in the bush. And yeah, they can't get here fast enough. And we've had really good success rate. They've all ended up with full-time jobs in the forestry at the end of the year.
So what years are these kids?
12s and 13s.
Just wondering what they're going to do in life.
Yeah.
And forestry, obviously, for Gisborne is a natural job outcome, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah, and it's hard to get boys. You know, often their parents are a bit worried about them in the forestry, but yeah, with all the safety courses and things that these guys provide them with, they're pretty safe out there. Yeah.
So what's the future then? Are you going to bring more in as the forestry industry expands? We've got more harvesting coming for this region?
Yes, well that's why I've just been recruiting around the school the last week trying to find boys for next year, and got a list here which is really good. And my boys that are here this year, I'm sure they'll end up with full-time employment at the end of the year. And the 3 from last year, they were all working in the bush and doing really well. So yeah, couldn't ask for better outcomes really.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great.
Dr. Robert Hill from Lincoln University is revolutionising plant growth to boost New Zealand's forestry and kiwi fruit exports.
It's using beneficial fungi to help plants grow better. And it's a natural system that's evolved over millions of years. And the way I've gone about it is to isolate only from very healthy plants in a population. In the plantation, plants grow more quickly, and that translates into over 40% more wood volume.
So Robert's real strength is that he asks us the question up front, what is it that you're really interested in? And then he starts to work on the problem.
Working with growers from day one, Robert's environmentally friendly and sustainable solutions stand to save the industry $50 million per year.
Tremendous collaboration in New Zealand, the Forest Owners Association.
We've been investing quite a significant sum of money, and we leverage this against government money. We have seen growth benefits, we have seen reduced mortality. We won't need to use the amount of chemicals in the nurseries. The trees will be more resistant to pathogens, as well as faster growing and shorter rotations.
They've changed the way they do things to use the beneficial fungus.
Currently, we probably experience losses in the order of $100 million a year. It will be quite significant profit gains for the forest industry. It could be possible to even shorten the rotation lengths by having faster growing trees that mature at a younger age rather than at, say, age 25 to 30.
Helen, we're sitting out here in the Whariratas with some new forest, and we're about half an hour south of Gisborne, but what are you up to here?
Okay, I've come up from Christchurch and I'm visiting some trichoderma trials. We've got 4 up in this forestry area, and I'm looking to see the effect of some trichoderma treatments, the growth and the disease resistance of the trees. So I've come up to do some measurements. I'm measuring height and diameter or girth of the trunk, and doing an assessment of disease if there's any disease present.
Okay, so what's this trichoderma all about? Anybody watching would be wondering that.
Yeah, it's a fungus that's found naturally in the soil and also in the plant roots. And what my team has done is, over time, we've isolated the fungus out of the roots, and we've done some screening work to find the most beneficial strains. And over time, we've put those into trial work to hopefully produce trees that are much bigger, so taller, bigger girth, so more wood production there, and also trees which are more resistant to disease.
How does this trichoderma then actually work with the roots of the plants? How does it have its effect?
It's, as I say, it's present in the roots, and it helps the plant often to grow better. It's able to absorb more water if it's in a droughty location, and it's also helping to induce the plant to be, it's like prime its defence systems so that it can fight the diseases better.
Sounds like a magic bullet.
Yeah, well, that's what we're working on it really hard, and we've been finding in the program that we are getting some really good results in the trial work. And just there are some questions we need to ask. You know, is it how persistent is it in the plant? Ideally, if it's doing a really good job, it's going to be hanging around for the whole life of the plant and providing benefits to that plant. But the study's still quite early, so it's just taking a bit of time to get those measurements. But we've got our fingers crossed that the trichoderma is doing great things in that plant.
How do you inoculate the plant in the first place?
We grow up the trichoderma spores in the lab, in my case, and then we purify them and get them down to a dried state. And then in the nurseries, they take the spores and they apply it as a seed coat, and they actually use a glue. It's actually PVA glue, which is doesn't hurt the spores, and so you put them on as a seed coating, and then that seed, the inoculated seed, gets put into the potting mix, and then obviously the seedlings will grow, and then at the end of the season they are harvested and then planted out into the forest. So the trichoderma, the beneficial trichoderma, is being carried with that plant in the roots and is getting put out into the forest.
You mentioned strains of trichoderma, so obviously they don't all perform the same way and equally.
No, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of strains naturally out in the environment. So what we've done as a team is, over time, we've isolated those strains, and my predecessor, Dr. Robert Hill, who pioneered all this work, he went out and tried to find exceptionally healthy plants, and he would then isolate the trichoderma from the roots and put them into a screening process to work out which ones are the best. But you're right, some of them don't work very well and others are fantastic, so it's just doing that screening process to work out which ones are the best. And then we've taken, there's about 20 of them that have been very beneficial in nursery trials, so we've taken them forward into these forestry, into the plantation trials, and that's what we're working on at the moment.
What opportunities would there be in transferring this trichoderma knowledge into other industries, kiwi fruit and other crop industries?
Yes, it is happening at the moment. There's been a number of products, biocontrol products aimed or based on trichoderma that have been commercialised quite recently. So there's one that's been commercialised in kiwi fruit, and there's a little bit of work's been done with karri trees and other native trees, and there are other products that are for use in vegetable crops and other agricultural crops as well. So it's quite a broad field, but this is just the state of play at the moment in the forestry industry. We're trying to work out what's the at the moment we're looking at the 2 best trichoderma mixtures that have come through the screening process, and ideally we're looking to commercialise it into a product that can be on-sold to the nurseries so that they can do their seed coating, which is the easiest way by far to get the trichoderma into your production system. It's a very cheap way. And then the trichoderma is carried through in the seedlings and then out into the forest.
It must be a lot of fun working with something like this, and you're doing pioneering work and you're seeing obvious benefits very quickly.
Yes, the greatest thing is actually just to be out in this environment, to be working with the trees. We've just had a fantastic week up here in Gisborne, so I've been saying that we've brought the good weather up from Christchurch, but no, it's just working outside, working with crops, working with the trees. It's you couldn't really ask for anything better.
And thanks very much for your time. It was a great story to tell, Helen. And funding for the trichoderma research comes from the Forest Growers Levy, which is a fund contributed by all foresters when they harvest their logs. That's Forest Call for this episode. Let's see what's up next time. Ka kite. We're in Quakey, Christchurch at the University of Canterbury construction site for the Beatrice Tinsley building. There's nothing unusual about naming a faculty tower after a famous scientist. The Rutherford is just over the way there. But what is unusual about this building is that it's made entirely out of timber.